You keep choosing them. The ones who leave you empty. The ones who pull you close only to push you away. The ones who say the right things but never do them. You tell yourself it's love, that this ache means something, that the longing makes it real. But what if it's not love? What if it's self-punishment dressed as affection? What if the person you keep chasing isn't a soulmate, but a symbol? Carl Jung would tell you this: we don't attract what we want. We attract what we believe we deserve. And if you keep ending up with people who hurt you, it's not because love is cruel. It's because somewhere deep down, you don't believe you deserve more. You may not say it out loud. You may have done the work, read the books, even gone to therapy, but healing isn't always conscious. Your wounds live in your unconscious. And until you meet them there, you will call rejection a test. You will call inconsistency passion. You will call pain love. Jung called these inner beliefs. Complexes are not just thoughts, but emotional truths buried so deep you no longer question them. A complex is like an emotional magnet pulling you toward familiar stories. Even if those stories destroy you, you think you're choosing them. But what you're really choosing is a pattern, a memory, a wound that never got to heal properly. Because when you grow up learning that love is earned, not given, when approval was conditional, when affection came in waves, you internalize a core message: I must prove I'm worthy of being kept. And now, as an adult, you find yourself loving people who make you work for it, who keep you guessing, who withhold just enough to keep you in a loop of hope and despair. But it's not love you're addicted to, it's familiarity. The nervous system doesn't seek what's healthy, it seeks what's known. And if pain was your first teacher, then chaos will feel like connection. That's why calm feels boring, why kindness feels suspicious, why consistency feels unearned. You say things like, they're too nice, there's no spark, it just doesn't feel exciting. But what you're really saying is they don't match my blueprint of love. And that blueprint? It's not made of truth. It's made of trauma. You love people who hurt you because a part of you believes love must be earned through suffering. Not because you're broken, but because you were trained to believe that if you can just love enough, you'll be kept. If you give enough, they won't leave. If you suffer enough, they'll finally stay. This is not love. This is survival. It's your inner child trying to win over the caregiver who never truly saw them, trying to fix the past through the present, trying to rewrite history with someone who echoes its pain. But here's the brutal truth. You will never heal by reenacting the wound. You cannot turn trauma into safety by repeating it. You cannot convert rejection into love by chasing it. You cannot prove your worth to someone who doesn't even see theirs. You keep waiting for someone to love you the way you needed back then. But that love isn't coming from outside you, it has to start inside. Jung called this process individuation, the integration of the unconscious, the journey of becoming whole, not perfect, not painless, but whole. And you cannot be whole if you keep abandoning yourself for love, if you keep choosing people who reflect your old pain rather than your current worth. You say you want to be chosen, but you keep choosing people who can't. Because deep down, a part of you still believes that love must be fought for, that peace must be earned, that worth must be proved. But what if none of that is true? What if love isn't something you perform for? What if it doesn't come from suffering? What if your worth is not something that increases the more someone mistreats you? What if the pain you keep calling love is just a cycle, one your nervous system was trained to repeat, not because it's right, but because it's familiar? Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, author of The Body Keeps the Score, explains that trauma isn't just remembered by the brain, it's stored in the body. And when your body associates love with stress, rejection, or abandonment, it will confuse pain with connection. You will keep choosing pain not because you want to suffer, but because a younger version of you is still hoping to win, to finally be enough. But you already are. You were always enough. You just learned to love in places where love was not given freely. So how do you break the cycle? You start by becoming aware, not just mentally, but somatically. Notice what your body does around inconsistency. Does it tighten? Does it crave? Notice what it does around presence. Does it flinch? Does it relax? This is the beginning of healing, of rewiring, of reminding your nervous system that safety is allowed, that you do not need to earn love by suffering, that calm is not boring, it's safe. You stop romanticizing emotional labor. You stop calling red flags potential. You stop editing yourself to stay in someone else's story. You stop being the one who always bends, always gives, always stays. And you begin to stand. You begin to see that your love is sacred, that it deserves to land in a place where it can grow, not be drained. You begin to choose differently, not because it's easy, but because it's time. Time to choose people who make you feel seen, people who don't confuse you, people who don't activate your wounds just to validate your fears, people who meet you in the middle, not because they need you to complete them, but because they have done the work to complete themselves. But transformation doesn't happen by accident. It's not the result of fantasy, chemistry, or chaos. It's the result of wholeness, of inner work, of emotional maturity. For two people to truly transform one another, both must show up as they are, not as the roles they learn to play in childhood, not as the masks they wear to survive, but as real, present, integrated selves. Both must be whole. Both must be self-aware. Both must be willing to face themselves and each other. Because love is not just a feeling, it's a mirror. And when that mirror is clean, when both people show up in their truth, transformation happens, real connection happens, healing happens. But that kind of love cannot begin with someone else, has to begin with you. Not the version of you that begs for affection, not the one that mistakes anxiety for chemistry, not the one who thinks love is something you have to earn, but the version of you that finally understands love is not pain. Love is presence. Love is peace. So stop calling it love when it hurts this much. Stop labeling emotional chaos as soul-deep connection. Stop confusing the adrenaline of being ignored with the aliveness of being loved. Stop telling yourself it's meant to be when your body is constantly in fight or flight. Because what you're calling love might just be repetition. A nervous system on autopilot, following patterns that were set long ago. In the words of trauma researcher Bessel van der Kolk, the body keeps the score. That means your nervous system remembers, even if your conscious mind forgets. If in your formative years, love came with conditions, if it was tied to performance, obedience, or emotional labor, if love felt like walking on eggshells, waiting for the next emotional storm, then that is the blueprint your body stored. So now, as an adult, you confuse peace for boredom. You mistake calm for disinterest. You interpret kindness as weakness. And you find yourself drawn to the ones who make you work for their affection, not because they're right for you, but because they feel familiar. This is why consistency feels suspicious and chaos feels magnetic. When you're used to love being unpredictable, you develop an addiction to that unpredictability. Not in your logic, but in your biology. Dopamine spikes in your brain with every breadcrumb of affection. Cortisol rises every time they pull away. Oxytocin bonds you to people who are inconsistent because your brain registers emotional spikes as connection, not dysfunction. So when someone ghosts you, your body doesn't just mourn the person, it goes into withdrawal like an addict missing their fix. Not because you were in love, but because your trauma was attached. But here's the truth. You love people who hurt you because you were taught to equate love with pain. Not because you're weak, not because you enjoy suffering, but because your earliest experiences taught you this is what love is. And here's what's worse. You might not even realize that it's not normal because it's all you've ever known. Carl Jung believed that these internal belief systems become embedded in our unconscious. He called them complexes, clusters of memories, emotions, and beliefs that we don't choose, but that still shape our behavior. And until we bring them into the light, we keep repeating them. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So you end up in the same relationship over and over again, different face, same pattern, and you wonder, why do I always fall for people who hurt me? But the better question is, why do I keep thinking I need to be hurt to be loved? Here's what real love feels like. It feels safe, it feels calm, it feels honest, it feels mutual. It doesn't trigger your anxiety, it doesn't make you beg, it doesn't make you wait hours or days for clarity. It doesn't confuse you with mixed signals and cold silences. Real love gives you room to breathe, room to feel, room to be without having to shrink. It doesn't ask you to abandon yourself. It doesn't ask you to overfunction. It doesn't reward you for betraying your own needs. And once you feel that kind of love, the kind rooted in truth, safety, and emotional presence, you never go back to the one that hurts. Not because you've stopped caring, but because you've started remembering your worth. Suddenly, the ones who ghost you stop feeling like a mystery and start looking like a mirror, one that shows how far you've come. The ones who confuse you stop feeling like puzzles to solve and start feeling like red flags you no longer ignore. The ones who make you question your worth no longer feel magnetic. They feel immature, unfinished, unaware, like old stories you've outgrown. Because the moment you choose to love yourself more than the pattern, the moment you choose peace over emotional chaos, the moment you stop needing pain to feel alive, that's when the cycle breaks. That's when the addiction loses its grip. That's when you stop settling for love that feels like survival. And no, it's not because someone came along to save you. It's because you finally chose to save yourself, not with grand gestures, not with perfectly written affirmations, but with small, everyday choices. Saying no when you used to say yes out of fear, leaving when someone shows they can't meet you, pausing before you chase, breathing when your body panics from silence, staying when someone kind shows up. Even when it feels unfamiliar, you will still be tempted by the pain. The chaos will still whisper your name. But now you'll know that's not love, that's a pattern, and you're done repeating it. You'll begin choosing connection that nourishes. Love that doesn't confuse, people who meet you not halfway, but fully. Because now you understand love doesn't live in the chase. Love lives in the stillness, in the reciprocity, in the quiet spaces where both people feel safe enough to be fully seen. That's when healing begins. And that's when love stops feeling like war and starts feeling like home.